seen it. Has anybody seen that movie?
I saw bits and pieces of it.
Bits and pieces, it's good.
Yeah, it's, I think Mark Wahlberg is in it or something.
He's in everything.
I love him.
Yeah, if Mark Wahlberg isn't in the movie, then it's probably not gonna be very good or worth watching, right?
I love him.
Especially when he takes his shirt off.
Woo, right? Listen,
Then it's all.
Only reason why I
you
watch
like-
the movies.
Well, that's it. Mark Wahlberg.
Is beautiful.
That's a man. Okay, I gotta admit.
I just watched the series on Amazon Prime. It's called Jack Ryan. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
really good.
That's Tom Clancy's character.
Yeah, that
Never
was
read the
really
books?
good. No.
Excellent, excellent. He just had Jack Ryan Jr., his son's taken over in clandestine operations. I like the Tom Clancy. One of my best authors.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's another show on Netflix too, oh, The Punisher. It's on Netflix.
You know, it's like a spin-off from the movie, right?
It's better.
It is better?
Yeah, garbage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I tried to watch it, I'll be honest. I tried to watch it and it didn't get my attention.
It's good. If you like killing and, you know, gouging eyes out and all that stuff, that's,
If there's no blood and fights
There's a
and
lot of
gore,
blood in there.
I ain't watching
it's
it.
a lot.
That's all it is.
That's all there is. It's called Punisher on Netflix?
Yeah.
I have Netflix.
You should watch Making a Murder on Netflix. That's a good. It's a true
You've
story.
talked about that one before.
No, I just
Somebody did.
And it's so crazy. It's really good, and it's a true story.
Making a Murderer?
Yeah, it's crazy. Come watch it and come back and talk.
I'd rather watch Wahlberg with his shirt off, sorry.
Whatever.
Right, Jackie?
Yes,
That's right, we're gonna watch Mark Wahlberg.
I would.
Terrorism. Okay, terrorism. Is it good or bad? It's bad, right? Because that's how we view it. But what if we were part of the, part of the group of people that sanction terrorism? Okay, after 9/11, somebody mentioned 9/11, there were videos in social media, people celebrating, dancing in the streets, celebrating. Okay? From their point of view, their perspective, 9/11 was a good thing. They sent a message to the United States, to America. Most acts of terrorism, you can't pile everything and say all of them, but most, are a group of people that are underrepresented, don't have a means to form a formal military, sanction an attack, wage war against the country. They just can't do it, they don't have the means. So they strike out in groups to cause the most damage, instill the most fear, the biggest bang for their buck. Okay, and that's what we're dealing with. Now, terrorism, is it only from foreigners? No. No, so we have homegrown terrorists. We refer to them as domestic. I put a video in this, I think it's only 3 minutes. The Las Vegas shooting, about a year and a half ago now, something like that, about a year and a half. They say a single man opened fire down at the Jason Aldean concert, killed quite a few people, killed one of my friends. He was there on vacation. He was actually an officer, worked for me for quite a while, been promoted to sergeant. I retired, and I heard last that he made lieutenant, and he was just getting ready to retire. So he was at this concert with his kids, I believe, and when the shooting opened up. Come to find out, he was there trying to help people at the expense of his own life. It hit close to home, and that's the intent. That's the intent. After the attack, we talked about it in class, and I asked, how many people would still go to Vegas to watch a concert out in the open? Similar setting. About half the hands went up. The other half, they want nothing to do with it. So when that happens, that act of terrorism reached the outcome they were looking for. It made you modify your behavior. You no longer feel safe. And that's the idea. I cannot come into this country and wage war against the military, against the entire United States. But I sure can instill fear in as many people as I can. Boston bombing was one. Well, that was the marathon, right? They were running the
Yeah.
marathon. Oklahoma, bombing of the Oklahoma Federal Building. Yeah, that was a domestic terrorist. Shootings in theaters. These kids opening fire, and was it Columbine? Is that what that one was?
Columbine
That was
High
the
School.
school.
The high school. There was one in Denver at a theater.
Yeah, that happened a couple, about 5 or 6 years.
There's been a few, right?
Yeah. Also too with the church shooting in, South Carolina.
Military base. Soldiers opening fire against their own people. Claiming they're doing it to further some kind of, I don't know what their goal is. I'm not gonna say it was the religion, Muslim, not the Muslim religion, but the religion, Islamic. I don't remember, I don't know. But I do know that a soldier, United States soldier, took his own weapon, opened fire against his own squad. To make a point, okay, that terrorism can touch anyone at any time. And it's just a matter of time before something else happens. We get fat and lazy as Americans. We get complacent. We let your guard down. And that's what terrorists are waiting for. So they can go ahead and take advantage of that. They're out there. I watched, I think it's either Discovery or History Channel. And they said they estimate 155,000 sleepers, people in our country that are working for another organization just waiting to be called on. 155,000. That is ridiculous. That's why when you go through an airport, they have screening procedures. Police stations, banks, all these places are secure. Used to be you could walk right into these places with no problem, but because of terrorism, they've had to change how they operate daily. Went to the Hoover Dam before 9/11. Took my kid, we were up there, I don't know what we were doing. But we had gone skiing, I think, in Utah. And we came back, stood in Vegas for a few days. So we went over to the Hoover Dam, got to go down into the dam to see where the big generators are and the whole bit. Then 9/11 happened. Hoover Dam was one of the first places that they beefed up security. They stopped all those tours, nobody goes down there anymore. Golden Gate Bridge was another one. National monuments have to be protected. So if you're in charge, Myron, of the security, or let's say Riverside County, you're in charge. So it's your job to provide security for this county. What are some of the places you're gonna heighten security to protect against terrorist acts?
Like public areas?
Public area. Good job, Myron. I knew you were paying attention. Number one place. Water sources. Your water resource. Get to those dams, wherever your reservoirs are. Think about it. Bio warfare, put some chemicals in the water. You don't even know we're being killed with bioterrorism. Cyber is another one. Cyber terrorism is out there, and they're causing a lot of damage. They're infiltrating banks, New York Stock Exchange, insurance companies, just to mess with people. They don't believe in our way of life. Their mission is to change, convert our country. So we all believe as they do, whoever they happen to be. Because we're the enemy. That's how they view us. You gotta remember that. You don't have to do anything against them. It's just you're not with them. Therefore, you're the enemy. That's the type of mentality we're dealing with. Keep that in mind as we go through this chapter. Terrorism is real. It's out there, and it's just waiting to happen. These are some of the objectives for the chapter, but we don't really care about them. War on drugs taking a backseat to the war on terrorism after 9/11. I hate that phrase, war on drugs, because we're getting slaughtered. I think of it more as that little kid with his finger in the hole of the dam, trying to stop the dam from breaking. Sooner or later, it's gonna break. We focus most attention away from the drugs to terrorists. We have to stop terrorism. The events of 9/11 added a new dimension. We changed policies. Ask a citizen before 9/11 if they were willing to sacrifice, give up some of their constitutional civil rights. No way. They wouldn't do it. After 9/11, absolutely, we're willing to concede. Government, do whatever you can to keep us safe. It's been, God, what, 15, 16, 17 years? Right? It's been a while. The scales have tipped back to, we do not want to give up our rights any longer. We want our rights back. We shouldn't have to be subjected to searches, eavesdropping on our electronic devices. So the pendulum swung back, making it harder for law enforcement to keep you safe. Completed and attempted terrorist attacks present a significant, difficult challenge for law enforcement, requiring new levels of cooperation and communication between law enforcement agencies and their officers. So whose responsibility is it to fight terrorism? That's the question. Everyone. Give me an example.
If we see something, say something.
That's on a poster, right?
Yeah.
If you see something, say something.
And a lot of people stay quiet about if you have a hunch or a suspicion. Just-
Something don't look right.
Yeah, might as well say it, be better safe than sorry.
Mind your own business. In the airport, I love it. It says, please report if anyone asks you to watch their bag. Why would somebody ask you to watch their bag? Nobody asked me about that. Yeah.
Just want to say something right quick too, when I went home for the funeral, when you go into the airport, you know, there's still holes with the security system, the whole thing, because on Southwest, you can check in 2 bags before you even go up to be physically screened and checked. So those bags that you check in, those bags are not being checked at all. You just letting them go in and they, you know, they go in, you know, to the guys that handle the luggage and they put the luggage on the plane, but no one is checking your suitcase at all. The only bag that they're checking is if you got a laptop bag, if you got a pocketbook, if you got a, you know, a small carry-on, that's all they check. The other bags are not even being checked.
I'm holding this up. It was in my backpack when I went through the airport screening. Okay, my laptop was on the other side. I opened up the bag. They gave it a courtesy glance. Leaving San Diego, going to Houston. They didn't even care what was in this. Look at all the damage something like this can cause. Of course, this isn't an explosive device. Check that out. Couldn't this be
Yeah.
simply modified? It's a battery pack, that's all it is. But look at the case itself, the size of this. They didn't even look at it. They didn't ask me about it. They didn't even care about this little bag whatsoever. They just saw it or didn't even see it. They're getting complacent. They're getting lazy. Flying out of San Diego. Coming back, I flew out of San Antonio back to San Diego. They gave me the 3rd degree. What's this for? Why do you need it? Why couldn't you put it in your luggage? Why is it so important to have it with you? I mean, they really drilled me and I appreciated it. They were making sure the plane was safe. But not all TSA screening areas are that thorough. Some are, and I appreciate it. That's way too complacent to let that slide. That's why I tell you, it's just a matter of time. Southwest, I use Southwest myself. And not to pick on them, but they're the ones I use. As I was going through the screening, I look and I'm thinking, I could beat this so easy. Without much effort, I could circumvent their policy, take whatever I want on board that plane. And it scared the hell out of me. Because if I could see that and I could do it, somebody that wants to cause me harm could do it as well. And that's what they do, terrorists. They do these things. They go out there, reconnaissance, surveillance. They're out there checking for weak spots. Then they're back planning, and then they will attack. There's no doubt in my mind, it's going to happen again. Something as significant as 9/11, or even more so, is bound to happen, just a matter of time. If you see something, say something. Fighting terrorism starts with us, at the lowest level, civilians. Not being lazy or complacent. Say something. Report it to law enforcement. Make them come and check that everything's okay. Because one of these times it's not going to be okay, and you'll be grateful that you made that call. It starts with us. Sacramento, Washington, the feds, these people are not affected unless they have support. And that's us. You have to have that support. So what is terrorism? Here we go. Includes the unlawful use of force and violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce a government, civilian population, any segment in furtherance of a political or social objective. They do not have the means to wage a war. So they initiate these individual strikes, suicide bombers, okay? Different types of attacks. They are criminals. Doesn't matter if they say they're furthering their beliefs, they're instilling their religion in this godless country. Doesn't matter. The act itself is criminal. Targets are typically symbolic. They want to send a message. So if you look around, fortunately we don't have very many historic symbolic things here, but if you're in San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, larger cities, they do have areas of attraction. I can't believe Disneyland.
I was just thinking that way.
Yeah, I can't believe they haven't done anything at Disneyland. If I was a terrorist, that's where I would go. Disneyland, whether here or in, wherever they're at in Florida, these huge amusement parks. Can you imagine you start blowing up these roller coasters, kiddie rides? And I'm sorry, but if you blow up a bunch of kids, that's probably the best message for a terrorist to send out. Think about it. You're the terrorist. You gotta think like a terrorist. I'm in Disneyland. I'm going to the kiddie side, wherever that is, and start planting explosives. Don't have to kill many, 40, 50, 100. That's not a lot. 40, 50, 100. But think of the outcry. I'll definitely be sending a message. Terrorist actions are always aggressive, often violent. They have to be to get our attention. Asymmetric slant. They lean toward their belief, not yours. They don't care what you believe. Their mission is to convert you. Okay, this is the Vegas shooting. Like I said, I think it's only 3 minutes. So let's watch this.
Read about what investigators know so far.
Right now, we're told there is no larger national security threat tied to this attack, and at this point, they don't see any links between this shooter and any foreign terrorist organizations, despite the fact that ISIS has tried to take credit for the attack. Now, one of the most significant developments in the investigation so far is the fact that investigators have been able to execute search warrants, both at the suspect's home and in his hotel room. That's significant because at first they were having to take their time before they could execute those warrants. There were concerns about safety for the investigators, any potential booby traps like what we saw in San Bernardino. Because sometimes we see with these attacks, these attackers plan sort of a second phase or a second act at their home and can booby trap their home, their car, and in this case, a hotel room. But investigators were able to get into the house. They say they weren't really able to find anything that really speaks to motive, but they have taken some objects out of that home that they will continue to examine. They also got into the hotel room where, as they have said, they found that the shooter had at least 10 rifles. They're also taking some evidence that they will continue to examine from from the hotel room, but still, Stephanie, at this point, no clear answer on what motivated this attack.
Tell me where it is going from here, and clearly a lot of challenges because the suspect did not have a criminal record. He really wasn't on the books.
That's right. And from here, as the investigators have said, they have taken some objects both from his hotel room and from his home that they will continue to examine for evidence, anything that might possibly give them clues to the motive for this attack, and of course, whether or not he worked with anyone else, if there's anyone who helped him plan. Because clearly, law enforcement officials say it is clear that this is an attack that would require a lot of planning and had to be very methodical to sort of carry out this kind of attack. So at this point, investigators, they're going to look at what they've taken from the hotel room and the home, and also try to talk to any of his associates. Now, his girlfriend, a woman who's being described as a romantic associate, she was found overseas, but at this point she is not giving investigators any information.
Okay, the undersheriff in Las Vegas earlier described this as being investigated as domestic terrorism. There is debate over that term. Why or why not use that term, and what does it really mean?
So there is a huge debate about that term. Anytime you have a mass casualty incident like this, a lot of people would like it labeled as domestic terrorism. Now, as a lawyer, as a justice reporter, I sort of look at the law, and that gives us a lot of guidance about why there's so much controversy here. Because under the law, we don't actually have a domestic terrorism law that you can use to charge people. The federal code provides a definition of it, but you can't actually charge people. So I'm going to give you an example. For example, in Charlottesville, that car attack that is being investigated as domestic terrorism because they believe that the man who drove that car, that he may have been politically motivated to kill people. But even if it turns out that that was what happened, that he was politically motivated to murder someone, he can't be charged with domestic terrorism. There is no law with penalties that prosecutors can file a charge. So it's really up to Congress if they want to pass a law where people can be charged with domestic terrorism. But Stephanie, that's part of the confusion, is that there's a definition in the federal code that says any politically motivated act of violence can be considered domestic terrorism. They can't actually charge anyone with it.
Okay, can't charge them. Were you aware? I wasn't. You can't charge somebody for domestic terrorism. So what do you charge them with? Anybody?
I don't think he can be charged with his murder. I mean, you can't charge him for domestic terrorism. I mean,
Murder. Murder one, mass murder.
Having weapons.
and to me, that's
Illegal
the
possession of
stupidest thing
firearms.
I've never, I mean, that's dumb. You know, I mean, that is an act of terrorism. You know, I mean, that's what he set out to do. You know,
Exactly what he wanted to do.
it just makes no sense.
You see the people running, the fear, tourism dropped in Vegas after that, and rightfully so. Who the heck wants to go there? So for whatever reasons, he opened fire. The objective was achieved. People were afraid. Did not want to go to Vegas or Mandalay Bay for that matter. What's happening now? Of course he's dead. But did they ever find out anything? Anybody know?
I haven't heard anything.
New information? Still under investigation. We will not rest till we get to the bottom of this.
Well, he's 64, you know, wasn't married. He had an arsenal of weapons at his house. And, you know, these are individuals who lose faith in their government. So, because things are not going his way, this is what they do.
Yep. And it's sad. It's romantic interest. She knew nothing. The hotel itself, how do you carry 10 weapons, firearms, and nobody's seen anything, nobody saw anything? Do you really believe that? Or do you believe somebody saw something and said, none of my business?
Probably that.
Most likely. If somebody would have just said, I see something doesn't look right, call the police.
Especially the people working the entrance up front.
Come on, all the people, has anybody been to Mandalay just to get to the registration desk? There's a ton of people working there.
I mean, but if he has them in a bag, a big bag, and then if you got, if you're familiar with weapons, AR-15s, whatever, you know, this upper receiver, it's a lower receiver, you can break it down, break it in half. You know, you can,
But do you think he used an AR-15 for that?
that's what he used to shoot out the window. That's what he was using when he shot all those people down on the ground. He was elevated.
Yeah, he was
His
elevated.
window was in the direction where he knew where the staging, where all the people would be. It's perfect.
So how can we prevent that?
You need metal detectors or something,
Gun residue testing, GSR,
something.
we do at the airports. A simple screening, if not of the person, at least the luggage, run back through some kind of
Yeah.
screener. I haven't been to Vegas in a little while, but has anybody been there since the shooting? Nobody. Yeah, good. Did you stay at a hotel?
No, I stayed with family, but it was like a month after the shooting happened.
I'm curious to see if they've upped their security at hotels to scan for possible weapons like that.
Just like you said earlier,
Wouldn't
you
it be
know,
simple?
the tendency with the people in this country, they become complacent.
Yep.
You know, they never keep, things at a high level or, to where, you need to be vigilant at all times, just because the threat passed, okay, well, we can go ahead and lower the threat level. This country's ass backwards.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
is.
I mean, how many more times are you gonna have to, people are gonna have to lose their lives because, well, we haven't had an attack in 2 years, 3 years, so now we can go back to everything like normal.
It's okay.
It can never be normal.
Israel, okay, Israel's always under attack. But if you look at the security in their country, they got it right. You check into an airport, you get screened outside of the airport before you come into the terminal. They don't check your bags once you're inside the terminal. They think that's ridiculous. You can plant bombs all over the place before anybody even asks you a question.
So easy.
So their screening is on the outside. Anywhere you go, you have to present papers. You have to have a passport. Most of Europe's that way. You wanna rent a car, where's your paper, your passport, your papers? You wanna stay at a hotel, where's your papers? And we can't even ask a person for their driver's license in our country, because it's offensive.
That's the problem.
They're illegal aliens. How dare you ask them
Yep.
if they have a driver's license? That is the most ridiculous thing.
That's why nobody says anything, because like you said, everybody's offended, we're in an era where everybody gets butthurt.
Politically correct.
Yeah,
I don't wanna offend you.
so even if someone's seen those bags, they probably wouldn't say nothing.
No, because they're afraid.
I don't like the guy, but, he was elected as president. But he keep it 100, he keep it real. He tells you exactly what he's going to do, but, everyone wants to classify the guy as a racist, but you can't have it both ways.
No.
If you don't say nothing, people are upset. If you say something, people are upset. So, what do you want?
We were just talking about that very thing earlier today. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
It's ridiculous.
The only thing, again, give him credit, he's trying to do something. So he's pissing off a lot of people, okay. The more people you piss off, more likely is he's doing something good. If you don't like it, then it's gotta be good. We need to do something, that's the bottom line. And I don't care who's in office, I really don't. It starts here. It doesn't start in Washington or Sacramento. It starts with us demanding from our elected officials that they do something to ensure your safety. We have to be willing also to sacrifice some of our civil liberties. If you're not willing to sacrifice, government cannot do their job. Okay? So keep that in mind. So let's look at two different types of terrorism. Domestic, international. Okay? International, foreign state sponsors, ISIS. Okay? Second threat, formalized terrorist groups, Hezbollah and some of the others. Third threat, loosely affiliated international radical extremists travel freely in the United States. If I'm one of these international terrorists, I'm an extremist, I'm here to cause you harm. I'm not gonna fly into our country and put up with customs asking me a bunch of questions. I'm gonna fly into Mexico. Or take a ship, land in Mexico. Then I'm gonna come through the border. And you're gonna let me. Because you don't wanna be racist. You welcome everybody. I'm here to work in the fields. I'm here to send money back home. Some people are. But that's the story I'm gonna use. And that's the story that they do use. Anyone wishing to cause you harm can. We do very little to defend against it. Domestic terrorism, homegrown. White supremacists, black supremacists, militia group, right wing, left wing, pro-life, animal right. The last one's what I like, environmental. Environmentalists, they're crazy. They're straight up crazy. They'd rather save a spotted owl. A spotted owl, this happened in Northern California. Spotted owl over an entire city's economy. Your paycheck, your ability to support yourself and your family. Because we gotta protect this poor spotted owl. Later came to find that these owls are everywhere. They believe they're isolated to this little area up in Northern California. They're not. They're everywhere. Whoops! Our bad. Sorry you lost your home, your car, and you went hungry, now you're not in the street. It's ridiculous. They want to do good. They believe they're doing good, but they're killing you with good intentions. And that's the problem. Gotta be aware. How can our society reduce the number of lone wolf offenders? I like that question. Like the Vegas shooting I just showed you. A single person, individual, out to cause you harm. How are you going to defend against that, Ms. Jones?
How are we gonna defend against it?
Put it away, pay attention. Thank you. Okay, so how are you going to protect yourself against this lone wolf? Anybody? Mario?
Just stricter security, like how you're saying, metal detectors at least would do something, check the bags, if anybody going outside or anything. That's a start.
It is a start, right?
Start somewhere.
I would say the people in his neighborhood, in his community, this guy goes to gun shows, he's constantly purchasing firearms all the time, he's got, 50, 60 firearms at the house. I mean, that's a red flag in itself, ammo, or the guy's constantly going to the range and shooting, or he's spouting, about things on social media about his government. So all those are red flags for something that, this guy's gonna potentially do something.
But yet no one intervened at any of those stages.
So, I don't know how you might feel about this, but I feel like it should be kind of necessary to get like a mental checkup from your job. Like, just because a lot of people, like all these people who commit these acts are mentally unstable. And I feel like it's important to sometimes just.
Well, do you think a mentally stable person would do something like that?
That's what I'm saying, they should get checked out.
They should.
Should be
To become a peace officer, you do.
Sorry,
What's that? Yeah, if you are applying to become a peace officer, a psych eval is part of the process. It wasn't what I went through, thank God. I thought I made it. But yeah, they need to go through a psych eval. There's talk about, and I don't know if it's in effect yet, if you want to possess a permit to carry a firearm, you have to go through a psych eval. That was the talk. I don't know if they've instilled it yet. I think if you just want to buy a handgun or even a rifle, there's got to be some kind of check on you.
No.
But there isn't.
No, I got multiple firearms at home, and there's no, as long as I don't have a criminal history, I'm not a felon, I can go anywhere and go buy a firearm. I can go across state lines, I can go to Vegas, I can go to the South, I can go to gun shows, as long as I'm not a convicted felon.
And you can bring them to California?
Yeah, and I can
They won't let me do it.
go across state lines and bring it
You
back.
can't bring it back
I mean, not legally.
Oh.
Well, not
You
legally.
know, I'm just saying.
Okay, good.
But
I want to do it your way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
as long,
I carry
as long as you
license.
don't have a criminal record, you can get a firearm.
Second Amendment, Constitution, the right to bear arms. And that's where it comes from. I don't have a problem with people carrying guns. I think more people should carry guns. I have a problem with criminals having guns. So if we're gonna ban guns, take them away, they're no longer legal. only the registered owners, I have all my guns registered. I'm the one that's losing them. Do you really believe a criminal is gonna come in and say, okay, here you go, these are all unregistered? No, it happened in Australia. And the violence went through the roof. And they confiscated legal gun owners' firearms. It doesn't work. But if everyone had a firearm, there'd be less victims out there. Criminal would think twice before coming to your house, thinking, well, you know, she's gonna be armed when I get through that door. I'm not gonna go there. But over here on this door, right on the lawn, is a poster, ban all firearms. Guns are bad for everybody. That's the house I wanna go to. I saw something on Facebook, it was hilarious. It was a sign, this guy had it on his front lawn saying, he supports his neighbor's rights to ban all firearms, and then it had the arrow pointing to the neighbor. So if somebody wanted to go robbed, which house are you gonna go to? True story, World War II, Japan? When Japan invaded Pearl Harbor, I'm not sure if it's war, yeah, that was two,
Yeah.
it was two. When they invaded Pearl Harbor, they had the ability, they had soldiers already on our coastlines, but they were afraid to attack on the ground. They did not want to put troops on the ground because they knew that we had firearms in our homes. They didn't know where the threat was gonna come from, so they stood at bay. And that's not just us telling, this is after the fact, that this came out. They actually landed in a couple of parts up in Alaska. They had troops up there, but they wouldn't come into the California coastline. Okay, so how can we reduce the number of lone wolf offenders? Stricter security, arm your citizens. I told you what they do in Israel. Why don't we do anything similar on this campus? Or high school campuses now are locked. They put fences up, right? They put gates, they have security.
Some have the, where you have to walk through it, so.
They have some kind of metal detectors. We have nothing here
They only have those in the ghetto.
Well, they have
in that one building.
in one building, and you'll see them posted in different areas around campus, but.
And we do have security, right? They walk around.
Well, they had a resource officer in Florida when, the one kid went there shooting everybody, what did he do?
He hid.
He
ran.
can't. Yeah, what's he gonna do? Was he even armed?
Yeah, he was.
He was armed?
He hid in the room.
No, he,
That was
are you talking
smart.
about the Florida, the Clarkson?
That was smart.
He,
That
he,
was
no,
smart.
he walked with the students, I just watched a whole, like, 5-hour documentary on it.
Yeah.
He
went to
walked
Taco
with
Bell.
the students, like, as a regular student, and they didn't even know he was a shooter. And I watched, like, the police,
You wanna get out?
the police went this way, and he was already all the way over here,
Okay.
and they kept going in different areas, and
And
he
I
was
said
already
that was
further.
smart.
No, we're talking about the shoot, I mean,
No,
the
the security.
officer.
Oh,
security.
okay, I
The
thought you were talking about the
resource
student
officer, he
itself.
went and
They don't
hid.
have a shooter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He went and hid and he didn't do anything.
no,
Didn't he kill himself?
they don't pay him enough.
No, he's in jail.
They're not paying him to risk his life.
I'm like, no, I think he did it. I just watched the documentary.
Not the shooter.
So what are you going to do though to prevent those attacks? Not hire those guys. You gotta have some serious security, not some fly-by-night. Put in some strict, high-level security, cameras, fencing, gates, locks. I found out that little thing on the door, that's our security. That little rubber mat, that's it.